And here we go, Captain Cornball back at it again. Ja Morant said as he was leaving, "Let me find out what time he gets off." I'm not gonna lie to you guys, there's nothing to lie about. If somebody sends me this picture and says, "Hey Matt, this guy's looking for you," I'm laughing. Well, guys and girls, I know we do got some female viewers. I have officially found the newest, corniest of cornballs, and he goes by the name of Ja Morant. Now, I know what you're probably sitting there wondering, yo, Matt, who is this in the picture you're showing me? And believe it or not, that is Ja Morant. Now, in this said picture, we'll talk about it a little later in this video, so stay tuned. You'll notice he's wearing Sperry's and a polo. Just remember that for a little later. We'll touch on it. And also, before we get into things, I don't really talk about the NBA whatsoever, or really NBA players at all, but this was a situation I couldn't close my mouth on, and I had to speak up about it. One of the corniest things I've ever seen, if not the corniest things, and it's not just with Ja Morant, I saw it at my local high school growing up, is people who aren't from the hood, people who aren't struggling, people who have great parents acting like they're something they're not. It's weird, it really is. I'll never understand it, and y'all know exactly what I'm talking about because every high school has a couple of dudes like this. Every single person can relate to this video because you either went to high school and you was around people like this, or you're currently in high school and you're around people like this. They have a great upbringing, a great and nice happy family, and a decent sized house, nice cars, but for some odd reason, they want to portray to other people that they don't. They want to portray to other people that they're this thug that you don't want to mess with. And the best way I can describe this is these same people, they're the type of people to go on Instagram and Snapchat and post, "I'm getting it out the mud." And matter of fact, hold on. I'm going to give you a great example that happened to me, and I'll probably never ever forget this. I went to high school with this guy who was on my basketball team, and he portrayed himself as, I guess you would say, thuggish. He portrayed himself as somebody that nobody wanted to mess with. He was always talking about how hard his life was, and he was hanging around drug dealers. And the weirdest part about it, I couldn't wrap my brain around it, is that I really liked this guy, not only as a basketball teammate, but as a person when we would have casual conversations off the court. Because in the locker room or walking to our cars after practice, he didn't act that way. So I always thought it was weird how he portrayed this image of, oh, he doesn't have anything. Because around me, he didn't do that. Fast forward in time, there was a day he left his shoe at practice, and I happened to stay over, and he texted me and was like, "Hey, can you bring my shoe home?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, no problem. Send me your address." He sends it to me, and I drive to it. I get to where the GPS sends me, right? I pull into the driveway, and I'm like, wait a minute, this ain't right. I'm lost. I need to call him. I call him up. I'm like, "Hey, man, I think you sent me the wrong address." And he's like, "Oh, no, I see you, man. I'm looking at the blinds. I'm finna come out." When I tell you my mouth dropped, I mean it. I couldn't believe he lived here. I don't know the exact measurements of the house, but it was around about a 3,500 square foot house. For those of you that don't know how big a 3,500 square foot house is, I consider that a mansion. Is it technically a mansion? No, but to give you a better perspective, if you're living in a 3,500 square foot house, more than likely, you're going to have a pool table room, a movie room, and a guest room. You're going to have a lot of rooms in your house that most people don't have growing up, and I'll give you another perspective. I myself, the way I grew up, I was lower middle class. I'm not going to act like I had some hard lifestyle because I didn't. I grew up in the suburbs, but if you had a guest room, I thought you were rich. The way I grew up, there was no such thing as guest rooms. So if I went to somebody's house and I was like, "What's this room for?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's just the guest room." I was like, "Oh yeah." They get in the bag. But anyways, that's besides the point. I'm looking at this dude's house. It's 3,500 square foot, one of the biggest houses in the city. And I'm like, what in the crap? Now he comes to the car, I get out, pop the trunk, hand him the shoe. I'm like, "You live here?" He's like, "Yeah, why?" To give you some more context, I'm a very vocal person. I'd consider myself a leader, and I was the leader of the basketball team, so I am confrontational. So I just looked at him, I was like, well, man, why do you hang out with these type of people and do all this stuff off the court? You don't need to. I'm not saying I condone this, but if there's people who actually grew up in the trenches and they're still hanging around the wrong people, doing some stuff they shouldn't be doing, I get it because that's their habitat. But for this guy that was on my basketball team, that wasn't his habitat. And I don't want to get into his personal business too much, but he wound up saying something along the lines of, "Oh yeah, Matt, I promise I'm going to stop. I'm going to get my life back on track." I wanted to share that story with you guys because it goes hand in hand with what we're about to talk about and get into. I will never, and I mean never, ever, ever in a million years, understand why some people think it's embarrassing to come from a family that has a ton of money or is really successful. Believe it or not, that's the mentality they have because they're so prideful they don't want to admit, "Hey, I came from something nice." nice. No, they want to go, hey, I've done it all myself. That's why people who come from a great upbringing, they do act that way because they don't want people to think they had a handout. Which to me, I don't consider it a handout whatsoever if you're born into a wealthy family. You just got to step up on people. My advice is, use it to your advantage. I say all that to say this, not just the past couple of weeks, but the past year and a half to 2 years, Mr. Ja Morant, who is one of the best young players in the NBA, he is trying to put on this persona that he's some hood trench baby and you don't want to mess with him because he's about that life. He tweets about it, he talks about it, he tries to act tough during the games, and it's just a cringy act. It's cringe. That's the only word I know how to use, because I'm not taking some NBA player serious when he says he's some type of thug and he's going to do this or do that. Dude, you're making $200 million. And let me say this, if you are from the hood or trenches, there's nothing to be embarrassed about, because the main goal in life is to get out of there. Can we agree on that? I think we can. I think, and you could be wrong in this, if you grow up in an environment like that, there's nothing to flex about it whatsoever. And I'll tell you this much, I've worked with people from the actual hood, and I'm not even playing, the actual hood, and yeah, there's nothing fun about it whatsoever. They never came into work telling me how great it is and how awesome of a lifestyle it is. You know what the one thing they always tell me is, hey Matt, I gotta grind so I can get out of there one day. But the weirdest part about it is in 2023, we now got guys like Ja Morant or at your local high school where they're trying to go back to the hood. For some odd reason, Ja Morant wants to live that lifestyle. Ja Morant wants to be seen as this guy that you're supposed to be scared of. And here's the best part about all this, and the funniest part about all of this. I would understand it a tad bit more if Mr. Ja Morant grew up in a broken household or the hood. But ladies and gentlemen, that's not the case. Ja Morant grew up in a nice part of South Carolina with a mom and father in his life. To go on top of that, I'm going to show you this picture right here. He was one of the best dressed kids at his high school. And I'll tell you this much, I played AAU basketball growing up, and I had some teammates that were less fortunate than myself and were in some terrible situations, and they never wore Sperry's and polos to school. You know why? Because most people can't afford Sperry's and polos. I ain't never seen somebody from the trenches wear Sperry's and a polo together. I've seen him wear polos, but not Sperry's with them. Also got to throw in there, he's got the khaki shorts. I'm not going to lie to you guys, there's nothing to lie about. If somebody sends me this picture and says, hey Matt, this guy's looking for you, I'm laughing. If this guy right here, Captain Cornball, is looking for me, do you honestly believe I'm scared? Because I'm not. But check this out. So apparently Ja Morant's mom, long story short, she had an argument at Finish Line, and she called Ja Morant and told him what happened. And what does Ja Morant do? He pulls up to the mall with 9 other people. The police arrived and there was a quote unquote verbal confrontation, and it escalated. And here we go, Captain Cornball back at it again. Ja Morant said as he was leaving, let me find out what time he gets off. Oh man. Here's my biggest thing about all of this. Ja Morant, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when he gets off? Because I hope and I pray to God you're not going to do something that you'd regret the rest of your life. This is just cornball activity. Why are you pulling up to the mall 9 deep because your mom got into an argument? Okay, she got into an argument. It happens. And I don't want y'all to get twisted. I'd do anything for my mom and I got her back, so I may pull up myself to back her up, but I don't need 9 other people. That's just really weird to me. But hold on, it doesn't end there. Recently, a day ago, Ja Morant was accused of punching a 17-year-old boy 12 to 13 times and flashing a gun at him during a... What is this? During a pickup basketball game last summer. So yes, key word, this isn't recent news, but these accusations are just now coming out. And just like this reply says, and I couldn't have said it any better myself, the fakest ones go the extra step to prove they're gangster. I agree 100%. It's the same thing with money. People that actually got money, they're not posting about it. They're not telling other people. The broke people are the one telling people that they got money. People that actually got money don't go on Instagram and Snapchat and post a money spread. If you don't know what a money spread is, it's basically where somebody's just spreading out a ton of money on their arm. Do you think Elon Musk out here is trying to prove to people on Snapchat and Instagram that he's got a lot of money by doing a money spread? No. It's the same thing with Ja Morant. Every person I've met that's from the hood, trenches, whatever you want to call it, they don't talk about it. Why? Because they live that life. And I know it's corny and cliche, but it holds true. Real G's move in silence. Ja Morant's just weird, and it's such a strange story because when he was at Murray State making that insane run in the March Madness, even his first year with the Grizzlies, everybody loved him. But I'd say half of the people on here don't even take him serious because he's trying to act like a gangster. You're not a gangster, bro. You're not. No gangster wears Sperry's. I've met some wannabe gangsters that wear Sperry's, but not real ones. I could continue to go on and on. That's all I got. Let me know your thoughts down below, but roll a milli.